Good morning. Shall we please observe a moment of prayer as we commit this program to the hands of Almighty? Father and everlasting God, we thank you this morning for the opportunity to be here. We ask that your power of sustenance will fall on this program and let this program be fruitful. In the name of your Son, Jesus, we have prayed with thanksgiving. Amen.
With a round of applause, let's appreciate the Reverend Lawrence Body, who happens also to be a lecturer with us in the Faculty of Accounting and Finance. At this moment, we would want to welcome our Dean, the Professor Isaac Body, to give us the welcome address and purpose of gathering. A round of applause as he mounts the podium.
Good morning once again. I would like to associate myself with the early established protocols to give a welcome address. And thank you very much for leaving everything else to join us on this important occasion. Currency Develop Dialogue Series. And that is why we are here today. As part of the strategy focus of the faculty, we intend to deepen our already established relationship with the industry players. This is not the first time. We are going to have series of such discussions with our industry players, enhancing that relationship. So I want to say that in the coming few months, we are going to have a night with CEOs, and it's part of our strategy to enhance that relationship. Life is about relationship, and just to let you know what we have in store for our CEOs and senior industry players who are here today. We went to Joy, starting, I think, since Monday all the way. I walked to the house and my little girl asked me, I saw it on TV. You didn't speak English. I said, oh, but Joy is an English, is oriented. So he said, I didn't understand what you said. Because I saw some key words in there. The little girl didn't understand. Geopolitics. De-dollarization. So I had to take my time to educate her, and I'm sure that is what our panel here will do today, and help us understand the technical words in this. What is geopolitics? What is de-dollarization and all that? So they will explain, but I took my time to explain the terms to my little girl. Why are we here today? In 2007, we experienced a financial meltdown on a global stage. And Ghana also, we've had our share. And then in 2009, we had countries coming together to form a union. And the idea was purposely for economic partnership. And then 2009, it was inaugurated in Russia. 2010, South Africa joined. And who are these key players or front runners? They are the Brazil, the Russia, the China, India, and then not for political alliance, but for economic partnership. We are told from research that they control about 40% of the entire population. 26.5% of a trillion in terms of resources. Just to give you a background, and then I'm sure our speakers will do that. They also have some historical alliance in terms of trade, in terms of other components as well on the global stage. In August, they are meeting in South Africa. And the idea, as part of the things that they are going to do, is introduce a common currency, and that will be used among themselves. what will be the implication when that currency or that partnership kickstarts in a global stage? I know a lot of countries are picking up, trying to join. And my little girl asked me, if we are talking about BRICS, and we don't know how many countries are going to join, then can they add plus to it? So it becomes like the LGBT. We don't know how many people are going to join later on. All right. So it tells you what is going to happen, the international space, trading partnership, point where all of them will have to converge together. We are here today to explore or to stimulate discussions around these international economic and financial related issues. That's why we are here today. And thank you for coming. We have a wonderful experts who are going to discuss this issue with us. And I must take the opportunity before I introduce the chairperson or chairman for today. I want to thank the team, the FAF projects, team members, the faculty, the various department we have, and other auxiliary staff and members who have contributed to this important occasion that we're here today. So thank you very much, and I wish you all the best to have the best of presentations and discussions. On that note, I think I'll have to welcome give a background to the chairman for this occasion. And the chairman is no other person than our own, Mr. Ben Amenome. He is the president of the Chartered Institute of Bankers. And he's a highly motivated leader and banking professional with over 30 years of extensive experience in the banking sector. His experience cut across the whole spectrum of banking and management leadership. In fact, he has vast experience in this area, and I'm sure some of us who have the program, we have a lot of information about him. But the last part, he's a consultant in financial and management services, also a voluntary church worker. And today he's here, and I want you to welcome brother and our own Mr. Ben Amenome. I'm sure I've pronounced the name right. Right. Thank you very much. So let's get a round of applause.
Thank you, Prof. I would like to stand on the same protocol to thank everybody. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished panelists, today we gather here at this inaugural session of the Currency Development Dialogue Series to engage in a thought-provoking discussion, which is a subject matter that holds tremendous significance in our global economic landscape. Theme: the geopolitics of de-dollarization, BRICS currency strategy, lessons learned for African common currency. In recent times, the world has witnessed significant shift in the global economic landscape, with new challenges and opportunities emerging in the realms of international trade and finance. The undeniable influence of United States dollar as the world's primary reserve currency has been a focal point of discussion, prompting regions and economies to reassess their currency strategies. The path and the strategies chosen by economic powerhouses such as BRICS nations towards de-dollarization, fostering greater monetary independence, and their potential impact on the African continent are topics that demand our undivided attention. These endeavors have sparked intriguing discussions on the potential implication for Africa's pursuit of common currency. Today, we have the opportunity to delve into this subject matter, shedding light on the intricate interplay between geopolitics, currency strategy, and economic cooperation. We are fortunate to have the presence of distinguished experts, scholars, and policymakers who will contribute their valuable insights towards fostering a fruitful dialogue today. As we embark on this enlightening journey, let us remember that the true essence of dialogue does not end by exchanging ideas, but also embracing the diverse perspective and taking steps towards implementation to achieve the desired goal. I encourage all participants to actively engage in discussions, bringing forth the expertise and explore avenues of collaboration. Let us aim to collectively unearth the innovative solutions that can shape the future of global currencies with specific focus on Africans' aspiration for a common currency. May this event serve as a catalyst for understanding, cooperating, and progressing the African common currency agenda. Once again, I will thank and extend my warmest welcome to each one of you and wish you an inspiring and enriching dialogue series. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That is Mr. Ben Amenume. I think we can do much better. At this moment, we would want to know who the experts that we have invited are, so that when they start taking turns to make their presentations, we can appreciate their diverse experience and also appreciate the angle from which they are tackling the subject matter. In no particular order, the very first expert is Dr. Olurunsola E. Olowufeso. He is the Director General, West Africa Monetary Institute. A round of applause to Doc. He was formerly a director at the Central Bank of Nigeria. He has about 29 years working experience and is well-versed in matters relating to regional integration, issues, and current developments facing the ECOWAS sub-region. Dr. Olowufeso was formerly an associate professor, so he's one of us, right? An associate professor at the Federal University of Technology, Akure, Nigeria, before joining the Central Bank of Nigeria in 2008. He holds a bachelor's degree, MSc in statistics, MSc in economics, and a PhD. Again, Doc, you are welcome.
Thank you very much.
Our second speaker is Professor Vladimir Antwi Danso, the Dean, Ghana Armed Forces Command and Staff College. Doc, Prof, you are welcome, sir. Prof is a researcher with vast experience in international relations, international security, regionalism, and conflict. Former director of the Legon Center for International Affairs and Diplomacy, LICIAD. Associate director, Center for Regional Integration in Africa. Former Dean of Students, University of Ghana. The visiting scholar, Johns Hopkins University, Baltimore, USA. And currently the Dean and Director of Academic Studies, Ghana Armed Forces Command and Staff College, and is a product of the University of Ghana, Legon. Prof, again, you are welcome. Our third speaker is Na Dr. Al-Hassan Andani. He is the founder and executive chairman of LVS Africa Limited and has over 20 years executive experience. I believe most of us know Na Dr. Al-Hassan Andana as the CEO, former CEO of Stanbic Bank. Na, please, you are welcome. A round of applause to Na, please. Our fourth and final speaker is Mr. Seth Nana Amwako, who is the head of compliance unit at the Financial Intelligence Center, FIC Ghana. He has been with FIC Ghana since the year 2012. His role as the head of compliance include facilitating anti-money laundering and countering the financing of terrorism and proliferation of weapons of mass destruction, training and outreach programs for the regulatory bodies, law enforcement agencies, accountable institutions in banking, securities, insurance, as well as designated non-financial businesses and professions. Again, Mr. Seth Nana Amwako, you are welcome. As we wait for our honorable speakers to prepare and share their presentations with us, we would want to view a short documentary, just about 2 or 3 minutes, on this subject matter: the geopolitics of de-dollarization, BRICS currency strategy, and lessons for Africa's common currency.
In a rapidly changing global economic landscape, the dominance of the US dollar is being challenged. Welcome to the geopolitics of de-dollarization, insight from BRICS and implications for Africa's common currency. A captivating documentary that explores the evolving world of currencies and its impact on global finance. For centuries, the world has witnessed the rise and fall of dominant currencies, from the Spanish real to the Dutch guilder, from the British pound to the US dollar. Economic power has shifted and shaped the course of history. Now, the BRICS nations are at the forefront of a new chapter in currency development. Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, these emerging economies form the acronym BRICS. Their collective ambition to reduce their reliance on the US dollar and establish a more balanced global financial system.
The BRICS nations are spearheading the movement of de-dollarization. They are actively exploring alternative currency strategies to safeguard their economic interests and enhance monetary sovereignty.
Russia, in particular, has taken a leading role in spearheading the development of a new currency.
With a round of applause, welcome our very first speaker, please, Dr. Olu.
Thank you very much indeed. As you rightly mentioned, I'm a teacher. So if you permit me, I would also like to move around. Because this is a dialogue section, we should be able to interact among ourselves. I know you guys are going to ask me questions, and if need be, I'm going to ask you some questions later. So, the title of my paper, as you can see, it talks about West Africa Monetary Zone and currency development, aligning with the BRICS currency strategy. This title, it was what Prof sent to me, and I actually work on it. But I have a little amendment here. I didn't amend it onto this section, and I will tell you the reason. The issue of aligning with the BRICS currency strategy. I will disagree with the word aligning completely. I will prefer, let me say similar to, because we are not aligning. The issue of currency, we need to look at the political and economic. And in Africa, we are really interested in the economic angle. The BRICS guys, if you put it in a scale of 1 to 10, I will say the political angle is about 9. But in WAMS, we are interested. We look at the political as well as the economic, but we are looking at the economic benefit. So, audience, at times when you see alignment and I change it, you know the reason why I'm not aligning, because I wanted to even accuse Prof. Before that. You see a Russian train. That was, but I didn't ask him that question up to now. So the outline of my presentation, as you can see, we are going to look at the WAMS and the strategy for monetary union, the roadmap for launch of ECHO. The authorities of head of state approved 10 roadmaps, clearly articulated that they approve for us, and we need to, so I'm going to show you those roadmaps as we go on. Then the status of macroeconomic convergence, what we have done, where we are, what challenges, I'm going to articulate those one later. Then macroeconomic convergence criteria, we will need to look at the primary convergence criteria as well as the secondary convergence criteria. Are we able to achieve this one where we are having the issue? I will also talk about that. Then what we have achieved in WAMS, precisely in WAMI, if we look at those roadmaps, what have we achieved? This area we have achieved, I will talk about it. And the few challenges, we will also talk about it. Then the other parts of the presentation will focus on the BRICS and the genesis of de-dollarization, the global picture, the aligning with the BRICS. I told you I have a reservation about that aligning, and the challenges of the proposed BRICS currency. And we prefer the conclusion. We have the conclusion and the way forward. So I quickly go to the evolution of WAMS monetary integration program. When we talk about integration, I like the way MC put it. We need to work together. We need to strengthen our relationship. Integration, looking at monetary angle, we need to look at the payment system, the fiscal, the monetary, the exchange rate. We need to integrate in all these ramifications. The statistical harmonization, the laws, the rules and regulations, the banking, the non-banking, we need to, the insurance, we need to look at this. But since we are looking at the evolution here, the ECOWAS monetary integration program commenced right from the formation of ECOWAS in 1975 by the 15 West Africa countries. And these countries are the 18 UMR countries, 8 UMR country and the 6 WAMS country with Cape Verde, making 15. The part of the expanded objective of the ECOWAS, which all of us are fully aware of, was to ultimately to establish the socio-economic community in the region for purpose of economic integration and the realization of these objectives within the Africa community. So economic strengthening, economic collaboration is very key in this idea. To achieve this objective, it became fundamental to establish the creation of monetary union and introduction of single currency by ECOWAS. And this is backed up by the Article 3 and 4, as well as Article 51 and 55 of ECOWAS Treaty of 1975, revised in 1993. Then some of the historical events leading to the establishment of WAMS are what you have on the slide there. We have the creation of the West Africa Clearing House. The other one that leads to that, we have the ideas of single currencies, which we call we are proposing the ECHO. The idea is to have single currency and one central bank. One single currency, one central bank. That's the ECHO now. And you now have the central bank that will drive that initiative. Then we have the adoption of the ECOWAS Monetary Cooperation Program, EMCP, in 1987 to introduce a single currency in ECOWAS. All these ideas are the basic ideas that our forefathers have then. And gradually, since it's a dialogue section, I'm not going to read all these slides for you because the university, the professor, they will send the slide to you later. So WAMS and its strategy for monetary union, we talk about the establishment. Precisely in 1999, the authorities of head of state decided to adopt the fast-track approach toward the achievement of the ECOWAS Monetary Cooperation Program, and leading to the signing of the WAMS agreement in year 2000 in Accra here. And this idea is to fast-track the monetary union in the West African region. The establishment of WAMI, West African Monetary Institute, came into place in the year March 20, 2001. And as I've told you, WAMS, when you look at the countries there, we have the Gambia, we have Ghana, we have Guinea, we have Nigeria, Liberia, and Sierra Leone. These are the 6 countries that are driving this initiative. And I must say that the fiscal authorities of the member states, as well as the monetary authority, they've given us 100% support. And I also have to mention here that the roadmap, by the time I show you the roadmap, they are really assisting the regional institution to drive these initiatives. So we go to the next slide. I need to quickly tell you the strategic pillar we have in WAMI. Where one of the pillars is macroeconomic convergence and statistical harmonization. We need to harmonize our statistics as well as, if you go to our website now, we have a robust statistical database and harmonization, all the 4 macroeconomic accounts, the monetary and financial, the risk sector, the balance of payment, that is the external sector, as well as the fiscal. We are looking at how to strengthen this. So the other pillar talks about the trade and regional integration, where you talk about import-export now. And one of our discussions today is how to deepen this trade relationship. Then the other issue is the financial integration. Under the financial integration, I remember I told you earlier, we have the banking, we have the non-banking, we have the insurance sector, we have the capital market, the domestic debt, as well as the capital market, and how far we have gone in all these areas. I will mention it later. Then we talk about the payment system development. What have we done in the area of payment system? One of the initiatives that I will discuss with you is the PAPS, Pan-African Payment Systems and Settlement. We've gone far. And if you go to your bank now, some of these banks, you have the menu there. So you can transfer, you want to buy items or you want to buy goods or services in Nigeria with your CD, you just go to the bank and you don't have to look for dollar. And it will be done within a twinkle of an eye. So the other pillar is what we call the institutional and capacity building. And one of the things we are doing here is capacity building, sensitization, dialoguing, workshop, and all those things. So we do capacity building across. We have researchers too that do cutting-edge research, novel cutting-edge research in all areas of economic development. And I told you we get the support of the fiscal as well as the monetary authority of the member state. So they send experts to us that work for a couple of years before they go back to their various countries. Then some of the strategy of the monetary union, we quickly discuss this one. The West Africa, the WAMS monetary integration program is anchored on the achievement of the primary convergence criteria. The 4 primary criteria, I will show it in one of the slides shortly. But the WAMS monetary union is a model on the EU approach. We all know the EU now. We know that apart from the your dollar, the dollar we are talking about. We talk about the euro. So these are some of the issues that are there. We talk about the legal and institutional framework. We talk about the monetary policy framework, exchange rate mechanism, reserve pooling, solidarity and stabilization fund, central bank statutes, and payments system framework. This is very key because you cannot do efficient trading without having efficient infrastructure in area of payment system development. And we talk about the capital account liberalization, the banking supervisions, and all the rest. So if you go to the idea here is just to show you some of the basic stories as far as that one is concerned. We talk about, we were practicing the double track approach before the authority approved a single track, and you can see the objective there of this is to introduce single currency in the ones by July 2015. This was not achieved. The introduction of this currency by the ECOWAS then was shifted to 2020. But thereafter, the authority met and they look at the roadmap, one after the other. Now we have up to 2027 to achieve this laudable initiative. I don't know why you guys are laughing. The echo, go to history, how many years? More than 40 years to achieve that. This is, we have not spent up to that, but so the timeline has been given to us, and we have this milestone articulated. So we got to get there before 2027. So we are now there, the roadmap for launching of ECHO. The authorities of head of state, as I've told you, these are what the area they approve for us. The macroeconomic convergence and stability part, we have that. And under the macroeconomic and stability part, you have strengthened multilateral surveillance mechanism in ECOWAS. As I speak with you, regularly use ECOWAS, WAMI, and WAMA. They do this multilateral surveillance, visit the fiscal authority of member states, visit the monetary authority of member states to get the relevant information to see whether they are able to meet the primary criteria and the secondary criteria. If they have not, what is the policy recommendation? Those ones are there. Then the other issue that the authority also approved is the harmonization of the legal framework of the monetary union. The other one is the preparation of exchange rate policy framework. This one is very key. Then you have the preparation for the monetary policy framework. The other issue, which I mentioned earlier, is the harmonization of statistical standard and practice. This is very key. Without harmonizing the statistics, you are going nowhere. So now the 4 macroeconomic accounts of members say we need to harmonize it. And the first thing is that you have to adopt the system of national account for the GDP compilation. You cannot, all over the world, people use the methodology of system of national account to do their, and you have SNA 2008 there. Then you talk about harmonization of balance of payment. Thereafter, you talk about the harmonization of the monetary and fiscal. All the 4 accounts are clearly stated there. The consumer price index. Without getting the price index, you use, that's your inflation now. You need to have a clear methodology in all the member countries to be able to compute the CPI and the government account too. Then the other sector, the other activity you have in the roadmap is the preparation of the framework for financial integration. This one is very key, and I told you earlier that as far as WAMI is concerned now, we've gone far in this area. The banking, and as well as non-bank financial institution, we have members of the college that are driving that process, and they've gone far. Then we talk about the payment systems in the WAMs. Here, I told you we have the PAPs and the harmonization of the fiscal policy. Then These are the subcomponents you have under the fiscal policy. You talk about harmonization of public debt management, harmonization of public accounts, harmonization of public finance law, and harmonization of budgetary process, as well as the legal text that you need for public procurement. Then you have the building of capacity building in area of and regional structure. This one is very key. We need to build the capacity of the relevant stakeholders that who are involved in this process. Then 2027, you talk about the launch of the ECHO. The various activities, milestones are clearly stated. So these are the milestones approved by the authority for us. As I've said earlier, these are the 4 primary convergence criteria. You have the inflation rate there. The inflation rate of less or equal to 5% annual inflation rate. This is a challenge. Now, you can see that most of the country we have, you can see outcome, I say none. Out of they are not able to meet this 5% rate. Is a big challenge. And we know that because this is a global issue anyway. Thank you, Joe. So the other item you have under the primary convergence is the fiscal deficit issue. Just a minute. Yeah, the fiscal deficit, including grants, as a percentage of GDP, this must be at least 3%. And within the WAMS, it's only 2 that was able to meet this as at 2022. Then the central banking of finance of fiscal deficit. The threshold there is that the central bank finance of government fiscal deficit not more than 10% of the previous year's revenue rather. 3 countries out of the 6 countries were able to meet this. So the external reserve too, at least 3 months of import cover, you have that, and the secondary criteria are clearly stated there. Then the macroeconomic convergence, as I've said, just it's not all the countries that are able to meet the criteria are clearly stated there. So some of the laudable achievement of WAMS, we have achieved improvement in area of macroeconomic positions of member states on account of WAMI. Then in terms of financial integration, the domestic debt, the capital market integration is going, and it has gone far. So you can see we have a plus there. This one, we have a robust statistical database and harmonization, the CPI, we brought member states, we've conducted training, sensitization workshop for them, that has been done. And in area of payment system, I told you we have a robust payment system in place now, at least perhaps it's there, for us to do our transaction efficiently within the member state. So these are some of the laudable achievements. And I need to quickly mention some of the challenges. We had several postponements. Look at the postponement, 2003, 2005, 2009, 2015, 2022. These are various postponements. Member states do not prepare national convergence. These are some of the challenges. Since we are going to have this paper, I think I will leave that some of those slides. Then the BRICS, now we need to, the objective of the BRICS is to establish an economic bloc for mutual interests of member states. Yeah, okay, they say I have 2 minutes or 1. Oh, okay, sorry. These are the objectives, initiative, but we, Mr. Moderator, if you permit me, some historical part to currency dominance. We have the Spanish during the 16th century, 17th century, the Dutch, the powerful German guys dominated them. 18th to 19th century, we have the British pound. Later in 19th century, the British pounds and the gold standard. 20th and 21st century, you have the US dollar that the BRICS guys are saying, oh, well, without you, we can survive. And we will get there when we come to probably question and answer section. The other one is the new era for struggle, which we call the struggle for new currency dominance. That is where we are now. So these are some of the two. This is the issue between the single currency as well as the BRICS. And in terms of alignment, maybe when it comes to question and answer section, we can quickly discuss the monetary policy coordination, because in WAMS, in West African Monetary Zone, there's proper coordination in the member state central bank. And the other activities there are clearly stated, Mr. Moderator. These are some of the challenges there, then the conclusions, and since we are going to have this paper, and he is already disturbing me, he doesn't want me to conclude, but if you permit me, my brother, I will say that as far as WAMS is concerned, what we need is proper coordination and support, the fiscal as well as the monetary support. And I told you that WAMS, the authorities have given the Convergence Council the mandate to support us. So I must give kudos to the ministers as well as the governors of the central banks of the member states for their support. And all these laudable milestones we have in the roadmap, we are going to achieve it by the year 2027. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Olorunsola E. Olowofe. So please, let's give him a bigger round of applause. At least we've seen that convergence towards a common currency is not new to us in West Africa. But as BRICS is coming stronger and stronger, what are going to be the likely ramifications for international relations? And so to help us to better appreciate that, we have Professor Vladimir Mchidanso to share with us his thoughts on the geopolitical implications of de-dollarization efforts, the impact on global economic dynamics. A round of applause as we welcome our Professor Vladimir Mchidanso.
Thank you very much. You saw I intentionally put my hat away just because I'm also a teacher. But unlike my predecessor, I didn't leave to go to the money area. So I'm still a teacher. And I'd like to thank the organizers for inviting me to be among the galaxy of top-notch brains like this, and I'm most grateful. The geopolitics of de-dollarization, BRICS strategy, lessons for Africa and beyond. Well, when I was given this topic, I knew that I have been working on some of the implications of the BRICS works and strategies where geopolitics is concerned. Geopolitics is nothing but the use of geography for the strategies of foreign policy. So you ask yourself, what is America looking for in Afghanistan? What are they looking for in Russia? Why do we still want to see Ukraine in NATO? And we are sending more arms and whatnot. These are all geopolitics. Why is it that Nana Akufo-Addo wanted to buy some more helicopters, which Akufo bought for the Ghana Armed Forces, which were very good for strategic lifting? But then an embargo was placed on the company, and therefore Akufo-Addo could not go and buy from us. These are all geopolitics. So I've explained what geopolitics means. And if you understand this, then you understand that the dominance and the hegemony of the dollar must be challenged because of geopolitics, and that is where we are now. The extent of the dollar, okay, my slides are teaching slides. My slides are teaching slides. They are not lecture slides. A lecture slide, you have one line and then you talk around it. So when you take my slides, it's like notes. That's why you see them longer. Right. Since 1945, actually, the dollar has been very, very dominant. It's because of the arrangement for payment system that my predecessor talked about of the world. Who is consuming, who is producing, who is buying. By 1945, the whole world was down. We are all on our knees. Europe had been devastated by the war. And therefore, there was no country or no currency. They talked about the Spanish, the Dutch guilder, then the British, all up to World War I. After World War I, the British Empire, on which the sun never set, the sun started setting. And therefore, there must be a new currency that will pivot the world payment system. And we found it in the American dollar because they were unscarfed. America has never seen any war on its soil. They haven't seen mass devastation. And therefore, it became the powerful house for production and trade. And so the currency became very vital, especially after 1945. And then the Bretton Woods system, which was introduced in 1947, created a snake system where IMF was to manage global finance, management of global finance. In 1970, so they didn't have any right to devalue. But in 1971, things had started going bad. And Nixon had nothing to do but to devalue the dollar by 10%. It brought some jolts to the dollar. If it happened today, the BRICS would have succeeded long ago. But soon after the jolts started and the dollar devalued by 10%, the Yom Kippur War of 1973 created a condition where the Arab countries now had plenty of dollars because it was the money for trade. So they had plenty of dollars. They didn't know what to do with it. So IMF says, give me the money and I'll know what to do with it for you. That's how the IMF stayed. So we call it the petrodollar. The recycling of the petrodollar gave room for the dollar to have more strength. And that's why it still controlled us. The dollar's strength also is the strength of the US. And they have been misusing it. They have been misusing that, what do you call it? Monopoly to punish countries unnecessarily. I'm shooting out to tell you that this de-dollarization didn't start today. Gaddafi wanted an African currency, an African gold currency, and that's why he was overthrown. Iran mentioned it before. That's why Iran is where it is today. I don't know, as I'm even saying now, I don't know where I'll be tomorrow. So an onslaught on the dollar is an onslaught on America, period. But it is because of its role, the role of the dollar in international relations, and that is why it has been so stubborn. First, as a medium of exchange, and the unit of account, and the store of value. If all governments, even if you are interested in dollarizing your property, nowadays in Ghana, even you sell your properties in dollars, you have, dollarized everything. Everything is in dollar. So once you do that, then it means you are inviting the devil into your house, the dollar into your house. And once you do that, why are you crying? It must be known that governments have the willingness and the compliance system to adore the dollar. And that's why we are having this problem. And then that is what is giving the dollar that longevity in dominance. I've mentioned the Bretton Woods system. So the dollar is the world's most used currency by far. If you take this, you will see. The attack on the dollar, as I said, is a geopolitical situation. And the geopolitical situation has arisen because of other foreign policies of both the BRICS and of the US. The US uses the dollar to intimidate. Only yesterday, Russia, you are out of the... And you know what the US normally does is that it uses both governments and global institutions. It's like if I can be bold enough to tell you that global institutions are under the ambit of the US. In fact, they have all been belted under the idiotic hypnosis of the US. Period. Oh, yes. Yesterday, WHO told us that LGBTQ is a disease which should be treated. And then the following day, they tell you it's a human right because America says so. That's what is happening to the currency too. It's like once you are under the hypnosis of the US, once they say this, then all global institutions just follow. And that is what is annoying, especially China. Now that the economy has grown to the extent that people are even thinking that it is the biggest economy in the world. People say it is second. Whether first or second, they say we want to get out. And Russia is interested, so much interested, and several other countries. I hear 40 other countries are ready to join the BRICS. But what the implications are, we don't know. So the movement did not start today. From the day the BRICS were instituted, one of the biggest aims is to ensure that the dollar does not dominate their currency. Even quite recently, because of Ukraine, Russia says, okay, if I'm off the SWIFT and you have confiscated my assets outside, fine. Now, every grain, everything I produce and you want, my oil and that sort of thing, get rubles and come and pay me. Yes. And that is a way of an attack on the dollar. So you see, I took these as headlines from the net. Russia, China proposed a new reserve currency, and you see them. Leaders of the BRICS, and they met in Osaka, Japan, June 28th. And that's what they are saying. This is also another headline. The anti-dollar drive spearheaded by Asia has spread to Europe, with France growing sour on the greenback's dominance. Here are 6 rising threats to the back's supremacy of global trade. So you see everywhere, challenging the dominance of the US dollar, the BRICS quest for a new currency. And as I've said, they have been questing for this since 2009. I have some very interesting, they are actually trying to create a bank, which they call the New Development Bank. And the New Development Bank is going to be a multilateral development bank that helps underdeveloped nations pay for infrastructure. The bank opens its doors in Shanghai in 2015 after being founded the same year. And several other countries are wanting to, but they wanted a $550 billion worth of a bank. And then people would subscribe to it. I hear France even at that time decided to think or rethink. So that is going to be a new currency system. But that currency system, as we have said, is, see, for currencies to survive, it's only as a payment system if you are not trading in that currency. If you are not trading in that currency, thank you, I'm sorry about it. But I thought I had the teacher's voice, right? Thank you. So Malaysia, China were launching an Asian monetary fund, you know. Then you have my namesake. Russia and Iran are a gold-backed stable coin. You have Brazil and Argentina plan a common currency, all as a payment system to go away from the dollar. You have UAE, India, look at using rupees in non-oil trade. All these things. China pushes the yuan to replace the dollar in oil trade. And in oil trade, Russia has the largest production and deposits. And so if China also relies on oil a lot, why don't we trade in non-dollar situations? Well, I took this also from the net, and I think the urging is a wrong spelling. That is from a China. This is from a China journal. Hui Ling Tang. Say Russia is urging, and I think not egging, it's urging Southeast Asian countries to, when you take it like this, you can't edit. And it shows just how desperately it wants to save its flagging economy. Right. So you have Ethiopia wants to join the BRICS group of nations. So in Africa, we are even thinking, and my concern is that it shouldn't be individual affair. If we go in as AU, or even if the sub-regional blocks will go in as blocks to try and align align with the BRICS, it is better. It is better. France calls for reduced dependence on the US dollar. French Emmanuel Macron attends a news conference at the Élysée Palace in Paris, December 10, 2017. And that is when he made he was trying to prepare the minds of the French people. Why do we have the dollar dominating us all along? So when I come to Africa, what should be our alignment, or what's the word you used? For Africa, dollarization and or de-dollarization may be understood differently. A very notable feature of financial development under the mostly macroeconomically fragile economies, especially of sub-Saharan Africa, is the use of the dollar as a medium of exchange, store of value, or unit of account. It has emerged as a key factor explaining vulnerabilities and currency crises, which have long been persistent in sub-Saharan Africa. But you see, there are benefits of the dollar to us, one way or the other. In economies with high and volatile inflation, allowing foreign currency deposits, that the dollar deposits, may encourage residents to transact through the banking system rather than deposit money abroad or hold their savings in non-monetary assets. The use of the dollar can also bring credibility to a country's disinflation efforts, notably in situations of very high inflation. We owe 30 billion external debt, I'm told. Please you correct me if I'm wrong. And then we went to beg the IMF. They gave us 3 billion, and it has stabilized our economy, even though we owe 30 billion. Countries that have experienced episodes of high inflation or hyperinflation have often used the exchange rate as a nominal anchor and have managed to bring inflation down through exchange rate-based stabilization programs. You see our inflation today, I've always tried to get it from the monetarists or the economists. I'm not an economist, I'm a political economist, actually. I shifted more into conflict and other things, because conflict is good. Without it, I don't chop. I'm always asking, why is it that our monetary policy, especially in Ghana, I've observed over the years, is always inflation targeting? Nothing else, one way. And the inflation target, if you get $1, it helps. So I told you 3 billion has stabilized our economy. And then you see the journalists always mentioning, the city has gained something against the dollar. I love those words, what it gains. You know, in highly de-dollarized economies, therefore, the debate about reform frequently centers on whether these economies should fully de-dollarize, or maintain a status quo. But the refutations are here. Even though the dollar rules us and we believe it's good, there are these things I call refutations. Indeed, dollarization can complicate the implementation of economic policies through various channels by A, exposing the balance sheets of the public sector, private enterprises, and households to exchange rate risks when assets and liabilities in foreign currency are mismatched. It may also, by reducing the authorities' capacity to use monetary policy and making it harder to use the central bank's lender of last resort function to stabilize the domestic banking system. 3, weakening the structural fiscal balance and fiscal flexibility by reducing the scope of seigniorage. And finally, by reducing the abilities of governments to issue medium to long-term debt in domestic currency, known as the original sin, further exacerbating vulnerabilities to shocks and thereby amplifying macroeconomic and output fluctuations. So there is the BRICS summit, which is coming on right now in August. For many African countries, the impending BRICS summit offers an opportunity for something much larger. Various African countries, including Egypt, Ethiopia, Zimbabwe, Angola, Nigeria, Sudan, and Tunisia, have expressed interest in joining the BRICS. The bloc has become increasingly attractive. A number of economies in Latin America, the Middle East, and Eastern Europe are also angling to become members, including Saudi Arabia, Belarus, Iran, Mexico, Syria, Turkey, and Venezuela. Last year, Argentina also said it had received China's formal support for its bid to join the BRICS. With BRICS members accounting for more than 40% of the world's population and around a quarter of the global gross domestic product, there is growing frustration over the West's dominance of financial systems. A new global pact. At the summit of the new Global Financial Pact held in Paris in June 2023, leaders from the Global South voiced the concerns about the West's dominance of financial systems. So we see it's gaining currency. The push is strong. Addressing the summit, Brazilian President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva said, and I quote him, "Some people get scared when I say that we need to create new currencies for trade. So this is a discussion that is on my agenda, and it's up to me. It will happen at the BRICS meeting. We need to get more African colleagues to participate, unquote. But then listen interestingly, and South African President Cyril Ramaphosa responded, President Lula, and I quote him too, President Lula, don't worry. When we have the BRICS meeting in August, the issue of currency is top on the agenda, so we are going to discuss it. Yes, he mentioned it there. This is just this year. So with that now, the dollar, we must not make a mistake, is resilient and will seem to stubbornly challenge the onslaught against it for now, as it has done in the past. Given the peculiar nature of African economies, de-dollarization may not be the option now. However, the currents are strong, and as my predecessor said, and I was discussing with Dr. Andani also, the payment system, the system of payment, what are we waiting for? If we are able to come together and we say the ECHO is our system of payment, because what we are consuming is what we are paying for. And if you are paying it in that currency, I gave a paper somewhere where I was saying that integration or currency development has much to do with trade intensity. And then he corrected me and said, you are trading trade intensity, and what are you paying? What are you using in paying for that trade? So it's very important. In that situation, Africa may gravitate towards the BRICS. China's trade with Africa in 2022 hit 220 billion mark and is expected to grow further. The African currency. Yes, we can have an African currency now if we push the way WAMI is pushing us. Attempts at creating an African currency have gone hand in hand with efforts at uniting Africa integration. The Abuja Treaty had elements of how we should create an African currency. 91. Gaddafi also wanted an African currency. I've mentioned that. The absence of the ingredients for creating an African currency include the lack of our trade intent. West Africa, we trade among ourselves only 10% horizontally. We all want to trade upwards this way. 86% of our trade with the North, So if we are trading with the North, then they tell us which currency we should pay in. Nature and magnitude of the shocks. Are the shocks asymmetric, idiosyncratic, or symmetric? When there are global shocks, how do they affect our economies? And that will also determine which currency you want to use. Factor mobility, factors of production. How mobile are they within our African setup? And fiscal transfers, what kind of transfers? And now we are being assured that all these things have been taken care of. WAMI is doing a lot of good. Now I want to thank you for listening. I think I hit my time well.
Thank you so much, Prof. I think we can do much better for Prof, as he has been able to give us a totally different angle from which we can appreciate this whole discussion on de-dollarization. Now we are moving gradually to the point where we're going to hear from the experienced bankers. How possible is it to achieve the goals of WAMI? How possible is it to see the BRICS new currency coming up? And what are some of the implications that we should be expecting from all these geopolitics and so on and so forth? Without much ado, we want to welcome Dr. Andani. A round of applause.
Thank you very much. And I want to thank Prof for structuring the presentation in such a way that I can be defended. So we heard from Prof, who is a very institutional person. So he came here to speak for WAMI, right? And for all the politicians. And then thankfully, he brought Prof. Enchu Danso. So one day I actually introduced her. I said, you guys need to read a CV for Prof. Enchu Danso. But I told him that it's good he was coming so he can say all the troublesome things that I warned Prof that this dialogue series could be very troublesome if it's not properly presented. But I am the only independent person here. Prof is not quite independent. He likes conflict, so he's teaching soldiers, and conflict pays. And WAMI is a very institutional organization. My friend is a FIC. He's right in the middle of it. He can't talk de-dollarization now, but I think we just have to come back to fundamentals. And I'm happy that this faculty has put this dialogue series together, and you are bringing in industry. I have spent a good part of my life in this industry. And I just want to say, my opening is that as an academic institution, we have to have, or we have conditional education and unconditioned or conditioned education and unconditioned education. The good thing is you should have unconditioned education. You should be educated, but once you are educated, you can go back 3,000 years. You can also go forward another 3,000 years. That's unconditioned. Then you have conditioned education where you are educated either in America, in Russia, or in China, and you are just conditioned to think the way those guys have conditioned you to think. So I just want, for starters, to say that this is very unconditioned thinking. And if you go back to politics, the unconditioned people who were educated, Nkrumah was unconditioned. So he was talking of AU, African Union. NASA and all those early leaders that we had were completely unconditioned. They were educated, whether in Russia or in America, but they had the skills now to look back 3,000 years and to look forward another 3,000 years and use that education. But today, we're educated at UPSA, and it's only how UPSA wants you to think, that's how you think, or you're educated by University of Ghana, or you're educated in America, and that is the basis of all these problems. Now, if you need to understand these questions, let's move away from the use of the words de-dollarization. It's important. De-dollarization, attack on the US, and all of that. No, if you actually go back, global store of primary means of production at the moment, largely. Most of your patents in the world to produce anything, from aircraft to telecoms, think about everything that you have. How many of you have iPhones here? Literally. Everybody goes up. So think about it. The ability to marshal productive forces, whether they are in your country or outside of your country, is irrelevant. You have set up a dependency that these people have to produce, and when they produce, they have to sell. And the ability to give you that intellectual property to set up a factory, to demand goods and services, and all of that. At the moment, if you were to list the number of global franchises held by US companies, whether in the US or outside of the US, is massive. You have to pay them. What currency are you going to use to pay them? Who set them up? So just so that you can understand the shifts. Then apart from that, you have household consumption or household income, disposable income, and consumption. So the US, by its very structure, has every shade of human being in there. Think about it. Look at the diversity of the human species in the United States. From blacks to Arabs to Chinese to Russians to Europeans, the entire world is there. So whatever global appetite, whatever global domestic appetite, whether it's in clothing, it's in food, whatever it is significantly demanded where? In the US. So if you were producing any of these anywhere in the world, where will they ship it to? And what would they pay you in? Dollars. So you have to understand that pervasive economic power, the pervasive political or military power, has to defend all these structures. So it was not created by accident or it was not created by some kind of just a design. And that's why I say when you are educated and you are unconditionally educated, not those of us today, you are conditionally educated. Please move away from conditioned education to unconditioned education. It's not always been like this. It's not always been like this. Indeed, what we call the dominance of the dollar is only actually from 1972. How many of us here were born after 1972? Quite a number of us. 1972, I was already, I think, getting ready to go to secondary school. Yeah? So, but that's when it started. Otherwise, every sovereign issued a currency and said, this currency that was given to you to exchange among yourselves was supported by something of value that I had. That's the basis of currency. That everybody said that my currency and the United States currency up to 1971, 72, when we exited the gold standard, was that, look, after the Second World War, the only power left standing was the US. Militarily, politically, economically. They were the only power left standing. And therefore, they helped to govern the world. And there's something called seigniorage. And those of you in finance, seigniorage, basic. I'm the sovereign. I can print paper and pay the military. I can print paper, pay the civil servants. I can print paper, pay all my workers. And this paper will have tendency because those papers that are printed in my country, in my perfect country, the soldier wants a house, so he'll go to a builder. He'll give it to him. That builder wants some iron rods. He'll go to an iron rods producer. So you see how it circulates. But because our countries are so tiny and so porous, we're unable as sovereigns to issue currency and have it circulate in an effective, efficient way. But in the US, that currency is not for the geographic area called the United States. It is for the global area. So just going back to when it all started. So they said that every currency they had, yes, whilst I'm militarily strong, I am economically powerful, I'm welcoming to the world intellectual power, and I can produce goods and services that goes around the world, they did convince us that every dollar was supported by its weight in gold. That was the gold standard. So it took the French, again. So if you see the French coming back and asking questions, it didn't start today. They calculated that the total amount of dollars that the US claimed was sitting in Fort Knox, if it was actually there physically, the weight of that gold alone in one location of the world would have spanned the globe. So clearly in their mind, that dollar, total value of dollars in the world, didn't exist in physical stock, that every country that had this amount of reserves, they didn't say keep it forever. They said if we kept reserves in dollars and you ever wanted it back, you can bring it. We'll take it and give you gold. So the Chinese challenge, the French challenge that, okay, we'll send our dollars over to you and take gold. It took Nixon. We all have read Nixon, that's less than 70 years ago. Said, sorry, we don't have this gold. And that was where the gold standard ended. But by the time it ended, the dependence was deep. The dependence was deep. And because we're also so conditioned in our thinking, we couldn't think of alternatives. And the global economic and political structures were so deep and entrenched, and every country needed it to work. So that's how the root of the dependence on a currency came about. Who did they take it over from? They took it over after the Second World War. The most powerful nation probably was the United Kingdom. Remember, they were the former colonies. The UK was the US was a colony of the US. Or UK. US was a colony of the UK, isn't it? Canada, India, India, Australia. Mention all of them. They were the colonies. So again, that was the basis of a pervasive political power and a pervasive military power, because they could land at your shores and bombard you. They lost all of that in the Second World War. The Europeans who could have done it also fought against themselves and destroyed the entire Europe. We were just non-existent. We're still struggling with basic tools to till the land, just moving away from hunter-gatherers, not even to any proper agricultural setup. So when we do these things, please, unconditioned educators or students, free up your mind and go back. So again, who did the British take it from? The British took it from the Dutch. From the Portuguese. Whoever knows that once upon a time Portugal ruled the world? They did. They probably ran the most brutal colonial administration ever. So that is the basis of it. So now if you step as an unconditioned educated person going forward, and I talk to you about consumption being the basis of currency, if you have the most advanced sovereign consumption, corporate level consumption, if you're raising capital, most of the capital you are raising would be by US companies. Just look at the total capitalization of US companies versus everybody else. In spite of everything we say, they are still the most dominant. But if you move forward, what's happening? So the US started as a manufacturing house of the world. Everybody wanted things made in the US. They became very prosperous and could consume and buy anything anywhere. So they decided to move production out, and just to keep a very rich government, very rich companies, very rich households who could buy everything else in the world, and therefore their currency was. Today, China is touted to be the production center of the world, isn't it? And they've been at it consistently, even though the Western media, and the media particularly that has been trying to condition us, has been telling us things that are not true. How many of you have actually been to China? When I went to China the first time, I was shocked. I stopped reading the Economist magazine for nearly 5 years. And still, since then, I've never really read the Economist. I only read a story that I know, that I want a little bit more detail on. Because I went to China in 2004, 2005, yes. And I was shocked. This was a very well developed. So just coming back, in terms of everything that was produced, whether it was in America, Japan, it's now being produced in China. They have gotten to the level of government demand or consumption is unimaginable. I.e., the Chinese government has an inexhaustible appetite to create infrastructure, everything that will support the administration of 1.4 billion people. And they also have enough Chinese industries who can produce this infrastructure. And therefore, the yuan has strength within China. The currency has strength within China. Okay, I'm being sacked. So just rapidly to say that what BRICS is doing is recreating the America that was or arose after the Second World War. So now you have, and I think that somebody who suggested that BRICS Plus is a good suggestion, that a number of countries now can see commonality in consumption, in global administration, and are prepared to stand and take that over. How we do it or how we transition to it is just going to be natural. But this kind of what we call seigniorage, I'm the sovereign. I just print paper and give it to you, and I take real physical goods and services. That's a huge advantage. Whoever is doing it now will not want to give it up. But it is not going to be by any other thing other than the economic, the political, military construct, and most importantly, the consumption construct that sails around it. Now, just to touch on how West Africa or regionalization can do it, we have to have a monolithic political structure, which we don't have. We have to have a monolithic economic structure, which we don't have. We'd have to have consumption organized around purposeful either sovereign level development, corporate level development, or households. So that's why I have a lot of, my first attack was to what's Wame been doing all these years? It's political will, economic consumption, and those things that you know. That's how these things happen. So let's move on. I mean, de-dollarization will happen because, as I said, there's this new evolution. China is now a massive center of consumption. You produce anything, you can sell it in China, whether to the government, to companies, or to households. And that population is 3 times the population of the US. And then if they can get a lot more similar consumption or regional integration, then you're talking a very massive area that sees that shift. Hopefully, we would have been enlightened enough to now be not participants, but creators of that. Africa, West Africa, it's not about being aligned. It's about being aware and knowing that our consumption is important to that brick or that new currency that will come out. And therefore, the synergy value of it will accrue to us as well. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you so much, now Dr. Andani. Again, because we are enjoying the support from Joy Business, we'd want to keep it simple and straightforward so that we can have a lengthy time when it comes to the second session, which is the panel session where we can take loads and loads of your questions. So without much ado, I wish to invite Mr. Seth Nana Amwako, Head of Compliance Unit, Financial Intelligence Center, to tell us a bit about the risk and the concerns when it comes to we pursuing a common currency. Sir, please, you're welcome. So please keep writing all your questions. He will try to keep his short so that we can enjoy more questions.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to be part among the experts to speak on these key areas that we are discussing. For FIC, ours will be off what we've been discussing. We'll be talking about anti-money laundering issues, talking about common schemes of money laundering, of course, in line with what we are discussing. But we will also speak on some of the trends. So should we all come together to have a common currency, what will be some of the risks associated with this as well? So I've been told to make it very brief, and I'll do that. So we want to ensure financial stability and also safeguarding against illicit financial flows in currency development initiatives. So talking about illicit financial flows, I'll speak on other schemes of money laundering as well. But just before I do that, in terms of mitigant or mitigation, for us in Ghana, we have some relevant laws like Anti-Money Laundering Act. We have the Banking Act as well. We even have the IOCO Act for law enforcement. I can even cite Special Prosecutors Act because bribery and corruption is one of the predicate offenses. So we have a number of laws in Ghana for combating that. At the international front, I also speak on the key standards for combating money laundering and other illicit activities. Since we're talking about BRICS, I also want to cite one body called FATA, Financial Action Task Force, which was set up in the year 1989. So it was about G7, ministers from G7 discussing how to safeguard their jurisdiction, and they gave birth to this key body called Financial Action Task Force. So anytime you hear that a country has been blacklisted, it's coming from this body. So just in line with the BRICS, maybe we can also decide to come up together and come up with some recommendations or standards for the implementation of that. Also within Ghana, since we're talking about safeguarding all the reporting entities, I'm talking about the banking, the insurance, the securities, even the real estate, because now we have the Real Estate Agency Act 1047. Agents and brokers are supposed to be compliant with the anti-money laundering standards. All are in the name of avoiding some of these schemes of money laundering, including illicit financial flows. So I'll speak on FIs, what we are supposed to do or what we are doing in line with the discussions as well. Just a figure for us to discuss or maybe to let you know, according to UNODC. So UN, the SAB in charge of drugs and crime, the DC, they are saying that how much is laundered every year, as you can see on the screen, 800 billion to 2 trillion per year. So people will be engaging in transactions because they are connected maybe within the Europe or within Africa and also other jurisdictions. And I'm talking about illegal sources. So illegal sources, there are about 22. And one of them bribery and corruption, okay? Or even in Ghana, environmental crime. Galamsey, yes, it's some of the sources we can cite. So that's the figure from UNODC. And in terms of detection, it's about 10%. So the 90 we are not able to detect, maybe because we are trading among ourselves within our sub-region. So we are also overlooking some of the key requirements when it comes to international standards. Once again, just for you to see, according to a report our Chance done, even within the African Union, there's an agenda for us to come together. I'm talking about movement of people. I'm talking about free movement of people and even capital. Of course, you have the AFTA in Ghana. So there's the need for us to come together. But from where we sit, I'm talking about FIs and other law enforcement agencies. We're also looking at the fact that people can take advantage of some of these things that we are discussing. And I'll be citing some of them. Also within the African Union, even there's a discussion on illicit financial flows. So those who are not aware about this, it's on the screen. So it's a catch phrase that we use, talking about capital flight, talking about people getting money from illegal sources and moving them from our jurisdiction or spending them, making them look clean, like money laundering. Of course, when it comes to illicit financial flows, there are other predicate offenses like bribery and corruption, tax evasion, embezzlement. All these can also be cited under the illicit financial flows. So connecting it to the discussion, when we come together, what can we do in terms of mitigating measures or mitigants? Something from World Bank. World Bank says that illicit financial flows are detrimental to sustainable development. So as we try to come together and work together, develop our sub-region or develop BRICS very well, what are some of the effects when it comes to illicit financial flows? So what can we do? Within the regional setup or initiative, we heard about WAMI and the other regional bodies. Within West Africa, for anti-money laundering, we have GIABA. It's a French word, but when it translates, it's Intergovernmental Action Group Against Money Laundering West Africa. So GIABA is based in Senegal. So GIABA also brings all the regional bodies together in the fight against money laundering. So as we discuss on transactions or corporate activities or financial transactions, what are the effects if we don't tighten the weaknesses? So GIABA is helping us to do that. So within GIABA also we conduct regional workshops for the financial sector and other sectors. There's the need for us within West Africa to discuss trade-based money laundering. So what is trade-based money laundering? Basically talking about under-invoicing, over-invoicing, falsifying of documents, or misrepresenting financial transactions, just to take advantage of the jurisdiction. So to cite BRICS, so if we decide to come together and work among ourselves or trade among ourselves, what are some of the weaknesses that people can take advantage? I have a video, I don't know whether we can play maybe later, to do with some of these fraudulent activities. So maybe one predicate offense will be fraud. And fraud can be banking fraud, insurance fraud, securities fraud, or it can be Sakawa. You can use the word Sakawa because even when we write to EU and other stakeholders, we use the word Sakawa. So trade-based, basically under invoicing and falsifying of documents. So as we discuss international trade, there's the need for us to look at some of these illegal activities. Once again, I have a figure from UN. So UN Conference on Trade and Development, they are saying that in terms of what we trade, the value and also percentage, as you can see on the screen, it keeps increasing. And because of the fact that it's so attractive, the criminals have also introduced the trade-based money laundering. As you know, the criminals are always interested in where we have the funds. So we have more of them in the banking, engaging in banking fraud, or engaging in cyber activities because they want to have access to funds. And these are some of the illegal sources. So then what is money laundering? Basically, money from illegal sources, making them look clean. And if I'm supposed to go around to quiz each one of us, you should be able to give me one. Who can give me one? What are some of the illegal sources? So bribery and corruption is one. Can you give me another one? Narcotics, thank you very much. Tax evasion, since I'm talking about illicit financial flows. Tax evasion, also talking about trading among ourselves. People who decide to evade tax. There's no tax avoidance for the experts in this room. So these are some of the areas we need to look at. It is also defined according to the Anti-Money Laundering Act. What is money laundering? Or what are the effects for non-compliance? But the starting point, because we have various, speakers and also participants here. The starting point is very key. A person shall not engage in money laundering. So it doesn't matter whether you're a student or you are expert or you are professor, never engage in money laundering. I'm not going to go through all, but there are some key words I just want to use. So criminals who engage in the word disguise, they don't want to disclose their true nature or identity. So if you go to a bank, since we're talking about controls, a bank will ask you, can you tell me what you do? Or I'm a student of UPSA. Can you bring a letter from your institution? Then they open an account for you. It's a form of identifying you. Also, when you start conducting some transactions that are beyond your profile or beyond what you've indicated on your form, they will quiz you. What has changed? Because they want to identify you all. It's part of the KYC, CDD, or EDD measures, enhanced due diligence. They are doing that to make sure that they are dealing with the right person. Also, you not be involved in other illegal activities. In terms of obligations, for us to mitigate or for us to reduce the impact of money laundering, all the financial institutions in Ghana are required to monitor their staff and report any evidence of money laundering. And this is from Section 1.3 of the Anti-Money Laundering Act. And also, we've also enhanced the criminal penalty. Some years ago, if you were involved in money laundering, it was 5,000 penalty units. But now it's so punitive. So if you're involved in money laundering, it starts from 300% of how much you've laundered up to 500% for individual. So if you're a corporate entity like Stanbic or UPSA or EcoBank and you're involved in money laundering, by engaging in illicit financial flows or trade-based money laundering, you are aware, then of course it to be very punitive. It starts from 300% and there's no cap. So if it goes to one of the seasoned judges in Ghana, I always cite Justice Efiase Wabotwe, then you'll be in trouble. All right. So these are some of the controls that we have in place. For capacity building, I know the first speaker touched on that. All the relevant stakeholders are supposed to build the capacity of other stakeholders or of their users. So in the case of FIC, we build the capacity of the regulatory bodies, so Bank of Ghana, SEC, NIC, and other stakeholders, all right, so then they can discharge their duties in line with the Act. We've been here, I'm talking about UPSA, and we came here to do training for even for the students. So effect of money laundering also undermines legitimate business. As we think to come together, also plan when it comes to the BRICS. What are some of the weaknesses? Are we thinking about cross-border transactions that may not be detected or that may be facilitating money laundering? Are we thinking of economic distortions? Okay, or the fact that the payment system can also be disrupted. So these are some of the things that we'll be discussing or we should be thinking about. Even though it's on money laundering, the discussion is also key. What can we do? Transaction monitoring as we trade among ourselves. So Ghana, South Africa, Ghana, Russia. What controls can we put in place as financial institutions? Monitoring transactions, the individuals involved, making sure that there are automated systems to help us pick unusual transactions. When it comes to trade-based money laundering, the body I mentioned earlier, the FATF, which is like the BRICS, okay, when they started, they've also come up with some measures when it comes to trade-based money laundering. And one of them will be the fact that institutions are supposed to know their clients and even clients of their clients. So if I'm a staff, I'm a customer of UPSA, and I'm into car dealership, and I have a customer who's into second-hand car ties. The institution is supposed to know who are my customers because of the inflows. It's the same thing when we work together with other jurisdictions. We're supposed to know the source of funds, who is sending, who are the recipients, and all these are guided by the international standards. So we need to be informed on that as well. For illicit financial flows or trade-based money laundering, there's the need for interagency collaboration. We had a meeting, one of the stakeholders talking about the fake goods that they bring to Ghana and the fact that there are some people behind making money. That can be trade-based money laundering. It can also be in the form of illicit financial flows. So we need to work together. Customs and all the relevant agencies should be working together. We need to assess our system. So if you're a financial institution, how robust is your system to identify one of the reports called suspicious transactions? Meaning the transaction is not in line with the person's profile. My time is up. We need to, push some of these to FIC. And also training, like what we are doing here today. In case you are not aware, FIC, one of our core mandates is to let people know what we are set up to do. So what I'm doing right now is in line with the Anti-Money Laundering Act as well. So to conclude, trade-based money laundering can also be seen as a transnational organized crime. So what can we do? We need to work with other agencies. Within ECOWAS, we work with all the regional bodies, and as well as the ECOWAS members as well. So if there's a transaction between Ghana and Nigeria, I just have to call the central bank or the FIC, in Nigeria, so then they can help us to combat the crime. If it's to do with financial crime in general, IOCO Ghana will call EFCC Nigeria to work together. And these are some of the things that we are promoting within our sub-region. When it comes to KYC CDD measures, we employ the institutions to do it effectively. So then Ghana will always be doing well when it comes to country assessment or mutual evaluation. Okay, so thank you very much for your time. And maybe next time we have more time to talk about that. Please. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Seth. We had to make it a bit snappy so we can have a lengthy session of discussions, Q&As, and the like. At this moment, I would want to welcome to the podium my brother and colleague at the Faculty of Accounting and Finance, Dr. Eric Boache, to take over the panel discussion session. A round of applause, please.
Thank you, Kwame. And once again, we want to welcome our panelists, and we want to set the tone for the discussion. Like Kwame mentioned, we are hard pressed with time. We would want to make it snappy and go straight to the point with our questions. The topic we have here is a very important one. And I did a little article on it, and it's within about 2 days, I had over 7,000 impressions on the topic we are discussing today. So it is of a very important subject that people would want to know and want to understand the basis of it. I would have liked to take your initial submissions, but I think your presentation has done justice to that. So I want to go straight, in no particular order, with some of the questions. And I'm starting with Professor Oluwafeso. I think I got it right. Yeah. Great. Oluwafeso. I was actually taught how to pronounce it before I came in. My question is, you can't feed yourself. Your car the car you drive is from Japan. The wheat you eat is from Ukraine. And you import medicines from India. Then you are saying you don't want to depend on the dollar. You are bringing a new currency. You have not built a system and structures that will not make you dependent. How do we achieve this common currency that we are expecting? Although we have mixed all the timelines, in 2015 we missed it, 2020 we missed it, I hope we don't miss it in 2027. How do we bring this into reality?
Thank you very much, Doc. To achieve this, I remember I told us earlier that all hands must be on deck. We need to work together. All the member countries needs to work together to be able to achieve this. In terms of payment system infrastructure, the infrastructure we have in all the countries are not on the same level. The level we have in Ghana and Nigeria, well, excellent. But other countries too, they are not there. So we need to also develop the infrastructure of these other countries. In terms of monetary coordination, monetary policy coordination, we know that in issues of inflation, moderation, the central bank determined when to hike and when to reduce or otherwise. This is to tighten the amount of liquidity you have in circulation. Yeah, one of my brothers mentioned that earlier that, the central bank is one of their core mandate. They also do some other microeconomic issues that needs to be addressed in the economy. They strengthen their relationship with the fiscal authority to be able to ensure we have a better economy. In terms of, if we look at WAMS, we need to strengthen let there be a kind of swaps in terms of currency agreement. As I've told us earlier, we have the PAPS, which we call the PAM, African Payment System. You can say, if you go to the bank now, Doc, your bank, you want to buy a goods in Nigeria, you just give an instruction. You don't even give instruction. You can go to it's menu driven. You go there, you say, how much are you feeling? What is the name of your bank? And the account number, you provide it without even interacting. The systems are in most of these banks. So these are some of the laudable initiatives. Then in terms of economic diversification, I must say that the reliance on some of these, because you said, oh, we need to buy this, we need to buy that. If, from our own angle too, we need to work together to be able to ensure that we have more export. Because if we export, we are definitely going to have a lot of foreign earning. And that will also boost our reserve from that angle. So all the hands must be on decks. And I must say, Doc, that in terms of our regulation, the monetary, all the framework has to be put in place. Now we have if you look at the banking sector, there's a framework for a robust framework in terms of the rules. The insurance, we have that. The non-bank, we have that. And I remember I also mentioned this, that all the harmonization you need to do, if you don't do it, you are going nowhere.
So just a quick one. I just want a straightforward answer to this.
Okay.
I want to put to WAMI and the West African Monetary Zone that the 2027 is not realistic. And we must be frank with ourselves that we are not putting in the measures to help us bring a common currency. I think we are high time to be sincere to ourselves and grow at a certain level. Would you agree in just 30 seconds?
Oh, Doc, I will totally disagree with you. We have to, we have to be this is not, we have to be optimistic. And when you have milestone, you have deliverable, you have various activity in your university now. I know if you are given a course in a semester, you know your target, and you have to deliver within that given target.
Thank you,
and if you have all the support, I think you should be able to achieve that.
In 2027, we'll be having this conversation, and that in 2027, we'll call for this conversation. Then, before I want to, you will tell me a different story of 2030.
Realistic story.
Realistic story.
Yeah.
Let's, Professor Vladimir Enchidanso would want to add something.
I would have loved to hazard it this way. I think one way or the other, somehow one would agree with you because Africa is prone to having grandeur programs and never reaching there. The Abuja Treaty was clear. 5 sub-regional groupings, a 34-year trajectory so that by 2025 would have one currency on the continent, would have united also. On and on and on, because of overlapping membership, we were unable to reach there. I was surprised that in 2006, I was at the conference in Banjul, and we rather added 3 more sub-regional groupings. IGAD, Mercosur, the we added 3 more, IGAD and 3 are the one which are 21 members.
Okay.
So it's derailed the program. So I think what you are saying, I think what we need, Doc, is a kind of rigorous approach to the whole thing.
Excellent.
A kind of bold approach. Why can't we launch the currency? Europe did that. When in 1992 they were about launching, only 3 countries were ready. Then 8 others rushed to make them 11 before they launched the currency. Now, if Ghana, Nigeria, Senegal, and Cote d'Ivoire say we are launching that, we will see how many people will put their house in order to join. So I want a kind of radical approach to this kind of currency issue.
Prof talks about, you can put your hands together, you can put your hands together. Professor Vladimir Enchidanso, when I saw your name, I was expecting to see a white face or Ukrainian or Russian until I saw.
And you didn't see that?
And I didn't see that. So, in your submission, you tend to project that the BRICS currency is, in a way, could dethrone the dollar, and the de-dollarization agenda probably will be on course. And you focus on the politics of it. The reason why WAMI probably is also unable to have missed all the targets and expecting 2027, there's some amount of politics in it. From where you sit as a watcher of political space in Africa, what do you think that Africa need to do different in order to help WAMI achieve the goal by 2027?
I still talk about the radical approach. Why aren't we united? Dr. Andani gave us all that it takes. We are about 750 million, right? And after it's projected to, by 2025, have a trade value of about 3.2 trillion. If that is the case, what are we waiting for? If we unite quickly, and if the consumer public of Africa is about 750 million, then we have a base for creating a currency. You know, and what are we waiting for? There is only one thing lacking, the political will. As soon as we put a government in power, he's thinking about the next 4 years and not how Africa should come together. Integration and integration processes are put at the back burner. And what we normally do is to put at the front burner what are the things we would do in order to win the next election. So if we put all these things behind and harness the potentials that we have, the mass of African peoples and what they can produce and consume, then we have a base for a currency, we have a base for unification.
Great.
And that is my approach.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Doctor, now...
I just wanted to make a quick comment about what...
Please go ahead.
If politics is about the interest of people and not what politicians think, so for example, today, the U.S. Federal Reserve, or tomorrow, is going to increase the U.S. lending rate, their base rate, to protect U.S. citizens against inflation. But that has massive impact on a poor country like Ghana. You already have debt that you can't pay, which is denominated in U.S. dollars. And suddenly your cost to pay it has gone up. Because the currency in which you chose to borrow in is not your currency. Yeah. The one who is issuing it is looking after the interest of his people. So overnight, they've looked at and said, no, we don't want to see inflation about 3%. The only way to do it is increase interest rate, only focused on U.S. citizens. So to the extent that African politicians can look at the interest of Africans or your people, it's political will. 250 million people in West Africa, 1.2 billion in Africa. But all the people behind WAMI and all are white consultants. Unfortunately, they're not your people. It's not a doctor like you. The people who gave you the WAMI framework were hired consultants outside of your country. They would not want to see you take out anyway.
So, Doc, you are stepping on certain toes, and I already sense a disagreement. Yeah. We'll organize another forum for the disagreement. Having said that, having said that, Dr. Al-Hassan Andani, from your submission, you are basically telling us that when African is hungry, US is rich. And you also mentioned that we need to come to a monolithic regime and economic convergence. That is the problem we have. From where you sit, you have operated in the banking space for the past 25 years. What solution will you propose? Thankfully, WAMI is here. So that it can help us to achieve economic and monetary convergence towards implementation of the ECO or a common currency.
Well, it always has to start with the politics. That our politicians must understand it's about the global and the greater interest of their people. If you take even the economy of Ghana and go into the banking sector, we have something we call risk appetite. So even in your own banking sector, So you have about, 12 different segments of the economy: agriculture, quarry, mining, services, and all of that. Just take that. In that small economy, banks have appetite on where they put their money. So if I say that agriculture is none of my business, and as many banks say so, then we don't put money in agriculture. You get what I'm saying?
Okay.
So it has to be a very clear political will, and the political will pulls the economic integration together. We're sitting here next door to Togo. They run a different concept, different economy, different. I was asking him about central banks, and he says there's a council. As many countries are in West Africa has different banking laws.
Yeah.
What are we talking about? So it's for me about, are we looking after about the interest of people? If we're looking about the interest of people, then yes, then we can start. And it just takes a declaration, and everything would fall in line. The entire WAMI or convergence criteria will never happen. It will never happen. Because even as, for example, Ghana is at inflation level of 5%, we're 10% dependent on foreign assistance to our budget. Then whilst we bring this to, then you are out of kilt. So it just keeps. So 2027 won't happen.
It won't happen. You
It
agree
won't
with me?
happen.
It won't
What will happen? What will happen
Professor
is for my friend.
Oluwefeso, we will come back to
what
you,
will
but
happen
for now,
is for my
he has
friend
the microphone.
to say that, look, guys, just declare the political and economic independence for me, and I'll bring the common currency to you in 3 years.
Thank you.
I'm helping you.
Thank you. We've had Professor Oluwefeso talking about political will. Mr. Seth Nana Amwako, you sit in the space of the financial intelligence, and the desire of Ghanaians and Africans for the dollar is growing. Just some few days ago, we heard about somebody packing dollars. So our appetite for the dollar is up. Does the FIC only react? And I'm saying this because I saw, and you released a document, was it yesterday or today, through the Institute of Chartered Accountants, and you are floating certain documents around. Sure. Does it mean that FIC is reactive? And what are you doing to reduce, number one, the appetite, and also to be able to curtail some of the things that are happening? Please.
Okay, all right, thank you very much. Yeah, so FIC, we are not reactive, very proactive. So within FIC, we have different units, one in charge of research. So maybe we use the dailies, whether online or printed, and we pick intelligence as well. You just cited one document that I've just circulated to the ICAG and even the legal framework for the lawyers as well. These are some of the things that we do. In terms of the main question, what we do in terms of mitigants is that we expect the institutions to be reporting some of these, transactions to FIC.
So we want to take your last remark, then we take about 1 or 2 questions because of the time. And I want to give all of you 1 minute to tell us the way forward. We've known the problem. We've discussed the problem, the dependency situation on. What is the way forward, Professor Oluwefeso?
Thank you very much, my brother. The way forward is for all of us to work together as brother and sister to be able to drive this laudable initiative. This is very key because at times in this issue, there is a give and take. You talk about political way, I must say, and I keep on saying it, that the leadership, the ECOWAS head of states, they met because they met recently, and it's not a tea affair. They took vital decisions on how to...
they stopped taking tea? Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm just telling you that it's not just... at times they even go for meeting, they don't take tea, if you are looking at it that way. But they look at the issue, the agenda before them, and address this agenda holistically to be able to arrive at this promised land. Because if you look at the issue of single currency I mentioned, look at the roadmap. All those roadmap, there are various institutions, ECOWAS, WAMI are there. And each of these activities are assigned to this institution, and there are specific targets and milestones. But I think we need to also be a bit careful when we are attacking or addressing institutions. Let's be sure of our fact. There are some things we read in social media that may not be 100% sure, but we need to be sure. We are all social scientists. If
Yeah.
we are sure of our fact and figure, oh, no issue. But if there is no sure of fact and figure, I don't think we are helping the situation.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Dr. Na Al Hassan Dani. Please, the way forward.
I think Africa must be part of the construct of the global governance and economic system. We've been too much just players or participants. We've never been part of the construct. And certainly not part of the construct at small country level. We have to be construct at the continental level. That the BRICS that is evolving, or call it the new currency zones that are evolving, Africa must be part of that construct. What is ruling the world today? The IMF, the World Bank, all those global institutions that are determining growth. We were never part of that construct. We are now at a point of inflection where you see some other economic powers and military powers emerging. We got, as a unit, to be part of the construct. So our interest, long-term interest, can be embedded in it, and we will understand it, not being taught it. There's a vision to being understanding.
So we don't have to watch, we have to participate in what is happening. Thank you, Dr. Na. I will take the way forward from Professor Vladimir.
I think I would like to align myself with Dr. Andani in the sense that for Africa to be an indispensable variable in the global monetary system, then we need to set our house in order. How are we going to be part of even the new system, supposing it is the one which is going to be used? Are we not going to still be the pedestrians that we are with the dollar? So it's up to us. We now need to come together quickly, create our own currency for the currency to be competitive with any other global currency that is coming up.
Thank you. So Professor Vladimir is telling us that if we go even for the BRICS, we are trading one REX for the other, and our situation will not be better. Please, what is the way forward for FIC so that we don't hear another
FIC, we promote interagency collaboration.
Okay.
Also, we try to make sure that we work within our sub-region. So as I said, within ECOWAS, there are a number of countries. So how can we work together, whether it's BRICS or for the fight against money laundering? What can we do together? And I think if we're able to promote that, that will be very beneficial to this.
I will take two quick questions, then we'll be out of here. Two quick questions. Hey, I have three, so I have to do gender balance. So I will take from Dr. Sadat. I saw three, 1, 2, 3. The rest I didn't see.
Yeah, thank you very much for this wonderful opportunity. Some of us had to stop our campaign to be here, just because of the.
For the benefit of the doubt, there are politicians here. But please go straight to the point.
Yes.
Other than that, we'll charge you for the media publicity.
It's because of the nature of the theme. It's very attractive, very sexy, and very romantic. Yes. Some of us in the communication, anytime we see new lexicons being used in the
30 seconds
space,
more.
We are very excited to see words such as BRICS, WAMI, etc. This BRICS is an acronym. It's one of the word formation process. But I realize in the manual, we refer to it as a phrase. But I want to draw the attention that it's an acronym. It's not a phrase, it's an acronym. My question is, the arrangement of the words, what informed the arrangement? Is it because South Africa is an African country, that's why it's the last, and the Brazil is the first? So that's my question. I want to.
That's the question.
Forming acronym, we have so many things that goes into it.
So not in any particular order, anybody can take that question, but we want to take a second question, and if possible, direct it to a particular.
Okay. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. I want to ask Prof. and of course Dr. Andani. Some countries have already moved from creating a common currency. Some economic zones like the Euro, for instance, we are still struggling to create a common paper money when other countries are talking about digital currencies and cryptocurrencies. So should WAMI be still talking about creating a paper echo, or should we be looking into the new phenomenon of digital currency. Then finally, Dr. Vladimir Enchudansu, can you please help us understand what is going to happen with the influence of BRICS, which is supposed to be monetary, and we know there is political backing, and the rise of Wagner in Africa? We've seen the waning of French influence and the rise of Wagner, and we're talking of BRICS where Russia is a major player.
Okay, thank you. So we'll take the last one to Dr. Gladys. Yes, the last
Thanks
one,
for
then
the
we will.
opportunity. Yeah, my question is directed to Dr. Andani. From the banking perspective, in Ghana, for instance, how easy is it that we can duplicate what happens in South Africa? No in other currency apart from the Ghana cedi in terms of transactions.
Okay, so we'll take Dr. Andani first, then the other questions.
That's a very, very important question, and that's the immediate start to these things. So I just got back from South Africa 2 days ago. And if you have rand, even if you are giving $10 to somebody as a tip, he said, no, go and change the money and give me rands. That's the basis of respect for your country. So, but in this country, it's a central bank issue that you can have dollar accounts. You can have FCA dollar accounts. It's our choice. And that's why we have so helplessly yielded to the dollar. And that's how so helplessly our monetary policy actually is. Because you control the cedi. Meanwhile, everybody else is keeping dollars. And you don't control the dollar. That's why we're so helpless.
I think it is well explained.
In fact, and that's why you can actually see the resilience of the resilience of the rand. The rand can go to $18 rand to a dollar and come back to 10 rands a dollar. I've seen that because of that. Yeah.
Thank you. Let's take Professor Olufeso's response.
Okay, thank you very much. The first question is the word acronym BRICS. What really BRICS? You know, the people that meet together, the authority of these 5 countries can decide. I don't think they look at the name that really suits there, because Brazil, in terms of power, is not the superpower there. You have the China and Russia. We all know. If you look at so I don't think they use that power, but you meet and look at the acronyms that really flow well, and I think that is how acronyms are being formed. That is one. Then in terms of the digital central bank digital currency, I think we need to do more sensitization. I'm fully aware that in Nigeria, there is e-Naira, and in Ghana too, there is in Nigeria, in Ghana too, we have the e-cedi. You can move money from your Naira account to e-Naira, and it's still one-to-one relationship. And ditto here. So I think maybe there needs to do more public awareness, sensitization of stakeholders.
Okay.
So in terms of digital currency, that will.
Thank you. Let's take the response from Professor Vladimir. Then we will take your oh, you were okay. Thank you. Okay, in 30 seconds.
Sure. Thank you. So what Prof just said, that's one line. The other line may be also promoting cryptocurrencies and the other ones, probably. So just to also say that in the fight against money laundering, some of these things should be assessed.
Yeah.
So even within the sub-region, what kind of risk assessment are we going to conduct when it comes to the use of cryptocurrencies or virtual assets? In fact, we call them virtual assets and virtual asset service providers. Okay. So within the sub-region, there's some ongoing risk assessment. And until we are done, you can't say that we are using Bitcoin or Ethereum for a transaction. Okay. We should conduct risk assessment.
Thank you. Prof.
Right. I have 2 places here. The BRICS. It is coming as an inevitable kind of wind. It's coming as an inevitable kind of wind. One from the political side, as Dr. Andani said, because there is this geopolitical struggle between China and Russia on one hand and the US. So it's an inevitable wind. It's blowing. Why should I be subservient to your currency for so long a time? And China and Russia are trying to oppose this, only because they've gotten the requisite platforms to be able to do that, as Dr. Anthony said. If we don't have it, there's no way we can challenge the US dollar for anything. So it's something inevitable. We can't stop them.
Okay.
Then the question of the economic zones. Yes, they are creating the economic zone in order to, you see, if you have been watching give me 1 minute, huh? If you have been watching National Geographic, you see how the small fishes, let me put them, they swim very fast. And the whales swallow them if they are left singly. But at a point in time, they all stop. And they form a certain huge kind of material, I don't know how to call it. And the whales don't know what to do, they swim away. That's what is in politics. This is what the economic zones are, creating zones so that they can have one currency. The Eurozone that was created is to be able to make the euro a little strong. And that's all. So if we create our own economic zone in Africa with what the Abuja Treaty suggested, that by 2025 would have had a currency. Because all the sub-regions would have had their individual currencies. And then by 2025, we put all the 5 currencies together.
Great.
But we couldn't do that.
Great. Thank you,
As
Paul.
for Wagner, you're only afraid of it's a military organization which is private. And it was intentionally put there by the government of Russia, knowing very well what they can do outside for them. They were trying to copy what America did in Iraq with Blackwater. So when they go and fool, say, it's not me, the government. It's Wagner.
Wow. Thank you, Prof.
And
Thank you, Prof.
So take it that way.
Thank you, Prof. So, Prof, in a nutshell, says that politics are about numbers, and therefore, if you want to dominate the political debate, we should rather come together and ensure that we have the strength, like that of small fishes coming together. I'm sure this conversation will keep on going, and that it will not end here anytime soon. We intend to bring another set of debate and discussion. I'm sure there are a lot of questions that many of us, I saw a lot of ones, I should say, but because of the time, we will not be able to take all of them. My apologies if you're offended for not taking your questions. And our panelists will hang around. You can interact with them during our photo session, our network. We have a network session. You can meet them. And I want to thank you very much for your attention. I want to invite Kwame to take over. Thank you.
A big round of applause for my brother here, Dr. Eric Boachi Iyadom. We shall now take the chairman's closing remarks, please. A round of applause as we welcome our chairman.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, it is very clear that getting a common currency for Africa is a complex process. So as we bring down the curtain for this important dialogue, there are 3 things that I want to highlight. That we have the geopolitics. The panelists have given all the information. We have the geopolitics, which can block or delay Africa's pursuit for a common currency. So that is the political will. We don't have uniform political system in Africa. So it will be very, very difficult that we can be infiltrated and it will delay the process. But the second part, which is the strategy, currency strategy, we can do something about it. From the discourse so far, if we decide to trade among ourselves and create a payment system and then let the banking system work and then strengthen our local banks to be able to invest in deprived areas in the economy, which will make it possible for us to consume our own products. It will limit our dependence on the international products. So that will also strengthen our local currency and merge our integration for a common currency within the zone. The last one is the economic cooperation. The economic cooperation too, I think the panelists have actually done a good job over there. So if we are able to, we want to de-dollarize, the geopolitics will not work. We are not strong. But the strategy, if we start that with the integration of our economies, that is trying to buy from each other through trade, and what WAMI is doing, and other zones within Africa are also able to come together, I think we can go far. On this note, due to time, I want to thank the panelists for your great and insightful knowledge that you have shared with us. And also the participants, thank you very much for making time. And thank you. Thank you
so much. So, Chairperson, please, you have a presentation to make. Dr. Boachi will announce that. But we quickly want to draw attention to the fact that in August, we're going to have
appreciation of your in-depth knowledge and experience shared during our Maiden Currency Development Dialogue series on the theme, the geopolitics of de-dollarization, BRICS currency strategy, and lessons for Africa's common currency in July 27, 2023. So we want to ask our vice-dean to do us the honest to present to us, and this goes to Professor Vladimir Anji Danson. Then we have this to now Dr. Alhassa and Danny